As a horribly online horror fan, creepypastas are a huge part of my childhood. I still remember the first times I read Ben Drowned, The Russian Sleep Experiment, Tales Dolls, like the classics. And I've kept up with some of the more recent ones, but I admit I haven't been in the scene as much as of recently. However, something that I'm sure many of you who are in the scene know, for as many amazing creepypastas out there like Buried Alive, there's like 100 pretty bad ones. So as someone with an English degree, a passion for horror, and being way too online, I thought it would be fun to talk about steps to take in order to make good, effective, compelling creepypastas. And just to be clear, as if it needs to be said, all of this video is going to be my opinion. There are some factual things in here, but the factual things aren't going to be like, this is definitely good. It'll be like, this is the definition of horror. You know what I mean? So anything that isn't clearly factual is my opinion. If you disagree with anything I say in here on what makes effective horror, that's totally fine. Hell, let me know in the comments. I don't mind. But without further ado, slices, put on your aprons, and let's make ourselves a story. First, let's gather our ingredients. What is a creepypasta? Frankly, that definition has shifted very much over the years. Originally, the term creepypasta encapsulated a type of modern urban legend. Stories passed around online that would be of weird, horrific things that would appear typically in video games or old cartoons. The term itself came from the term copypasta, which was taking blocks of text and repeating them throughout the internet, and then combining the word creepy to it. Creepypasta. However, over time, the term creepypasta pretty much means any horror story online. But for the sake of today's video, we're going to be using the original definition for creepypasta. Fictional, short-form, unsettling stories, typically about video games, TV shows, or are sometimes just completely original tales. One of the themes that made these original stories so effective was their ability to unsettle. For me personally, the overly detailed or incredibly graphic creepypastas were never as effective. For instance, most of the killer stories, except for the first couple, are pretty much just, hey, there's this guy that really likes to kill people. Here's all the details on how he kills people. It doesn't work for me. It's kind of just gross, not scary or horrific. Now, don't get me wrong, graphic elements within a creepypasta can be effective, but if that's the only thing you have, then you just have a story of graphic elements, especially so when it's from the perspective of the killer in question. So what do I mean by the ability to unsettle? Well, let's mix our ingredients and talk about a more recent example of the creepypasta, the back rooms. It's probably fresh in the minds to many of you because it's a very popular... Oh no. Okay, I think it's recording. This is day one in the back rooms, I guess. I don't know where in them I am, and I am not dressed for this. But we'll do our best, I guess, to keep morale and sanity up and keep my mental fortitude apt. I guess we'll keep going. So I know for a lot of us, the Backrooms is this expansive community project with thousands of levels, but that's not where it started. The Backrooms was originally just an anonymous post with this image and this text. If you're not careful, and you clip out of reality in the wrong areas, you'll end up in the Backrooms, where it's nothing but the stink of old, moist carpet, the madness of mono yellow, the endless background noise of fluorescent lights at maximum hum buzz, and the approximately 600 million square miles of randomly segmented empty rooms to be trapped in. God save you if you hear something wandering around nearby, because it sure as hell has heard you. This, in my opinion, is an excellent example of creepypasta. It's short, succinct, and it's great as a tool to show people, because while good creepypasta can be at any length, you can get anyone to read a paragraph. And that paragraph is just as effective. A warning of something familiar but unknowable, like liminal space. Take that definition and crank it up to 11. There's no gore, there's barely a threat, there's a mention of a monster somewhere, but nothing in detail. The Backrooms creepypasta simply describes a misfortune that can occur to you, and sure, you'll probably eventually starve or something, but nothing immediately is chasing you. You're just lost. Unsettled. We aren't told what to be frightened of in here. We're just told of a place, and we naturally understand the problem. Now, I'm not saying every creepypasta needs to be this open-ended and vague to be effective, but it does help to keep some answers off the table. Frankly, it's a great example of a wonderful tenet you can use in your creepypastas: mystique. Wait, what is that on the wall? Read this for supplies. What is this? Oh, okay. If I read this, whoever put this here will give me supplies to survive? I mean, it's worth a shot. I've got nothing else to do in here. Thank you to today's sponsor, HelloFresh. With HelloFresh, you'll get pre-portioned ingredients delivered directly to you. Instead of being stuck eating Fazbear pizza every night, why not try something interesting? You could even select from family-friendly meals, fit and healthy, vegetarian, or even pescatarian options. With pre-portioned ingredients that cut out food waste, you can save time and money, all while helping the planet. Being trapped here is, I'll admit, frightening. But nothing is more scary than the impending doom of climate change. HelloFresh is doing its part by being the first carbon-neutral food kit company and having almost all of its packaging be recyclable. Now, I really wish I could find something in here because I'm starving. But if you want to try HelloFresh right now, just click the link in the description or pinned comment below to save 70% off your first order plus free shipping. This is an amazing deal for an amazing service. So feel free to support the channel by trying out HelloFresh today. Thanks again to HelloFresh for sponsoring today's video. Water and a light. I'll be. When discussing horror, the most common stories that arise are ones of discovery or experimentation. Either someone found or was found by something they weren't supposed to, or an experiment or process or cult or anything went too far and created something horrific. You see this in a lot of really well-known creepypastas. Most video game creepypastas have to do with the plot of discovery, coming across unexpected glitches or a ghost in the machine itself. When discussing these plots, often the writer thinks of the foundational questions of writing in general. Things like, what exactly is happening? Why is it happening? Who is it happening to, and who is causing it? These are all amazing questions to keep in mind while writing. And while it's good to have most of these answers as you write, you don't necessarily have to include all of those answers in the text itself. One or two can help give context to a story, but in my experience, the more you leave out without leaving the reader lost, the better. Humans fear what we don't know. So giving a reader everything they need to know about a situation in the text is going to make it incredibly difficult to cause fear in them. An excellent example we can go to this, in my opinion, is the Backrooms, or at least the current iteration of the Backrooms as we see it today. As I mentioned, it started off as... what the hell is that? Hold on, I swear, I just saw something over there. Was it a shadow? No, the lights are overhead, that wouldn't work. Well, like I was saying... I think I'm safe here. I don't hear it anymore. Okay. As I was saying, a great example of why Mystique can amplify horror in text can be seen in the current iteration of the Backrooms. Part of the reason the original text was so effective is because it lacked any answers. How do you no-clip out of reality? Who made this place? What the hell is in there with me? What is in here with me? All of these questions go unanswered, and because of that, the mind has to rationalize, and that's where fear comes in naturally. However, when the Backrooms became more and more popular, everyone wanted to do their own riff on it, which is totally fine. Like, I love SCP, and I see that as a similar example of this community writing concept. But the Backrooms didn't do it quite as well. Suddenly, there was a bunch of different Backrooms with exact definitions of their monsters that wanted specific things. And like I mentioned in my Poppy Playtime 2 video, it kind of takes away from the horror when you know everything there is to know about a location, its monster, and how to get out of it safely. It's interesting to read, it just isn't particularly scary, at least for me personally. This isn't to say that details ruin the horror. I mean, again, look at SCP, there's plenty of details there, but they leave certain things out, and what is the difference? Well, let me go back to basics. Something I talk about in my Resident Evil horror video for members only is horror is often made of two parts, at least academically. Traditionally, horror is best implemented when something is both threatening and impure. In other words, there is a danger present and something is wrong with that present, either gore or the paranormal or something like that. If your story is just threatening, you cause fear. If your story is just impure, you cause disgust. But if you have both, then you have horror. So what should you strive for to create an effective creepypasta? Well, before we pop our mixture into the oven, let's write down a recipe that anyone can follow to make an effective creepypasta. An effective creepypasta. Ingredients: a familiar yet distant location. This can be a well-known but older IP if you're going with a video game, or maybe if you're not, something that is familiar to most people, but not too familiar. A place they only go every now and then. Some sort of threat, this can be direct or indirect, and some sort of impurity. Examples being uncleanliness, paranormality, gore, etc. Finally, what I'll call the 5 essential answers. This would be: what is happening? Why is it happening? Who is it happening to? Who is making it happen? And how is it happening? Instructions: preheat your oven to 666 degrees. Also optional, but I found it best to set up some mood lighting with some candles or some incense, maybe even ambient cave noises to help kind of get you in that headspace. But please use these carefully and responsibly. Don't burn down your house, and if cave noises are scary to you and you can't work in them, don't use them. Lay out your ingredients in front of you and decide what perspective would work best with your story. For many creepypastas, the format of the modern urban legend is effective, but not a rule. The modern urban legend is often a first-person perspective retelling something in a third-person perspective. Think the original Backrooms text. Some other perspectives you could use are first-person, second-person, third-person limited, or omniscient, but I will say third-person omniscient is hard to do horror because if you know everything, what's the point? And another note, second-person perspective is typically seen as the you perspective, like you enter a cave, you go down here. It's often used in choose-your-own-adventure novels. Keep in mind that a lot of creepypastas you'll read that seem like they're in second person are often in first or third person, written as a warning to anyone who dare do something. So just keep that in mind as you're choosing your perspective. And one final note on perspectives, it's not hard fast. If you're writing something in first person but you think, this probably works better in third person, switch it. If you, at the end, want to switch between first and third, go for it. It's your story. Begin combining your ingredients, but keep your 5 essential answers separate. If your story isn't very cohesive or hard to comprehend, you can add a few of your essential answers as a binding agent, but don't use too many because it could make your story tough and chewy. As you craft your story, keep in mind the reader's experience as well. If context lacking makes something confusing, consider striking it out or explaining it more. This is key. Once your draft is complete, get some distance between you and it, and let it rest for a few days. Then, once it's mostly gone from the mind, reread your draft. Make any changes you'd like. This is your baby, so feel free to cut your darlings and do whatever you have to make the story as best as it can be. Feel free to cut off bits of the beginning and end. Remember, there's a very thin line between open-ended and mystique, and vague and unsatisfying. Fortunately for us, effective creepypasta often gets right up to that line without crossing it. Finally, repeat the rest and review step as many times as needed until you finally like everything on the end of a review. Or at least most of it. You gotta post it eventually. Voila! An effective creepypasta. If you're still confused on how to use the recipe, I'll use it right now as an example. So finally, let's bake ourselves a story. First, we'll gather our ingredients. A familiar yet distant idea. I want to avoid a video game or TV show to make an example that can apply to anything, not just necessarily a traditional creepypasta piece of IP. So I was thinking a dentist office. It's a place everybody goes at least once or twice a year, but they really only go there once or twice a year. So we know what it is, but it's not too familiar. Not to mention, a lot of people are already afraid of the dentist, so this might tap into that fear. Something threatening. How about the threat of abduction or losing all of your teeth? Those are both common fears, and it fits pretty well with the dentist chair. After all, you're pretty vulnerable strapped to that chair with things in your mouth. Something impure. Now, I'm definitely thinking body horror for this one. Maybe the dentist has several rows of teeth, or there could be even a heaping mass of flesh behind a closet or something. And the 5 essential answers. Frankly, I don't have this yet. And you don't have to have all 5 to start writing, but keep them in mind as you write, because if you can answer all of them by the time you're done, your work will thank you for it, even if it's not in the text itself. All right, step 1. I don't have any candles. or ambiance. But I did get this from the sponsor read, so. Step 2, perspectives. I think this would probably work best as a retelling. Either it happened to somebody, maybe the person's looking for advice, or maybe it's a warning to people. To add to the vagueness and unreliability, it's probably best that this story's been passed on through the grapevine a few times. That way you can add some uncertainty to the narrative. Step 3. This is your drafting phase, so I'm just gonna do that. Alright, first draft done. Right away, this feels more so just kind of like a scary story. It's not a creepypasta. Not yet, anyway. For me personally, it's too long and it doesn't have the right feeling. Also, I ended up in third person limited, so I'll just give it some time and think it over. I have nowhere to go in here. Alright, that's enough time. Let's reevaluate and take out anything I don't like. Okay, I'm liking this a lot better now. I think the new perspective I settled on works better for a creepypasta, and I took out a few of the more gorish details to keep it more open-ended. There's still something missing here, I'm not sure, but tell you what, for the rest of this week, I'm going to keep working on this, and when this video goes up, Friday at 2:15 p.m., I will be posting the creepypasta on the official, it's been asked for, so we made it, Rytoast subreddit. Now, one of my favorite things in this community is the Discord that we have already instated, but it is 18 plus because Discord feels more like a big group chat, and I'm 24 and I don't want to be in a group chat with minors. But Reddit is an open public forum, and I think the terms of service is like 13, I don't know, check. But the Reddit will be open to everybody, so feel free to go in there. You can post FNAF theories, you can post anything you want, like fun horror stuff, but I think a fun way to kick it off would be to follow the recipe we made in here, make your own creepypasta, and share it. And we can talk about each other's creepypastas, leave comments, just be cool, be nice, check it out. But I need to work on mine a lot more. I guess I should try to find a place to sleep for the night. What the hell is that? Is that me? You! Wait. If that's me, how the hell is it? Ugh. Was that me in there? No. That can't be me in there because I'm out here. Sorry, a little freaked out. Okay, whew. I'll look into that later. If you want to know more about what makes good horror, you can always check out this Poppy Playtime video. But until next time, let's thank our wonderful toasted slices. Thank you to Emberisk, Zenith, Tommy Woodyard, Raven Eris, Charlie Bean, Lovey Puppy, Stormachow, Anvil Pro 100, Just BKZ, Chickpea, Isle, Lola Fembo, Ragnarok, and James. And until next time, as always, stay toasty, slices.